need to be quiet.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 1 of the Rice Family Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Harsha. Today we're sponsored by No More Colonialism, because colonialism sucks. We're joined by some great guests today. Why don't we all introduce ourselves?
Hello, I'm Bianca Mian.
Hi, I'm August Freelink.
Hi, I'm Joseph.
I'm Jummy.
I'm Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Izzy.
And we're gathered here today to talk about The Rice Mother by Rani Manika. Charlotte, why don't you kick us off with the plot of the book?
Yeah, so this story is set in Malaysia, and it's about love, sacrifice, colonization, and gender roles throughout the several decades it takes place in. The central character's name is Lakshmi, and she navigates the challenges of life through culture. She becomes the matriarch of the family. The intricate relationships between cultural identities and family dynamics are explored throughout the novel. In this rapidly changing world that it takes place in, Lakshmi's journey depicts both the struggles and triumphs faced in The Rice Mother.
Right away when reading The Rice Mother, the characters automatically have an important role in shaping the story. When it comes to the main character, it would be Lakshmi. She's a resilient and devoted mother that faces a number of challenges in her life. Despite having to struggle with poverty, abuse, and being taken away from her children, she always finds a way to rebuild her strength. She is always resilient and determined for her family.
Real.
Yeah, Lakshmi, definitely the central character of the book. Kind of like the seed that grows into this mighty oak, and that oak is sort of her family. With,
I love that.
Her husband and like kids. So yeah, like Joseph, I know you were like really interested in some of these other side characters that are really important to the story. Like, did you have any thoughts about some of those ones?
Yeah, I think someone who stands out a lot is Lakshmi's husband, Aya, who she is forced to marry and have kids with. I think Lakshmi and her family were happy to marry her off because they thought he was rich, but it turns out that he's broke.
Damn.
But she has 6 kids, I believe. 5 kids, my bad. 5 kids. One that stands out is Mohini, who is Lakshmi's beautiful daughter. Because she's so beautiful, she is sexually harassed a lot. And in the story, she actually ends up getting raped by the Japanese military. It's pretty awful.
Yeah, that was maybe one of the most difficult chapters we had to read. And like, there's definitely a lot of that makes it really easy to empathize with a lot of the characters. Yeah, I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts about like empathy in the book and like how we just like we're forced to relate to these characters. Not forced to, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we could empathize well with Lakshmi and her devotion to being a mother, even though, none of us are obviously mothers, but just her devotion to her kids and her strong will as she undergoes those challenges in her life. It was also difficult to hear her struggles, but we admired her resilience for that. In addition, I was thinking, like, after we watched the Jallahan movie, that after we got to relate to those impoverished characters, we felt like we could really empathize with these characters as well and how they face poverty and domestic turmoil, but then they still were committed to their family, and even though it was a struggle to survive each day.
That's a good point. Which one was the that movie you were referencing?
Jallahan.
Was that the one like with like the street people,
With-
like street
Yeah,
musicians?
Yeah, like Boney, TT.
Oh yeah.
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 Real.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Wait, so like what you were saying about empathy, like, should we get into some other themes, maybe?
Yeah. Let's dive right into it.
Okay. Jiaming, did you want to talk about colonization, or should we get back to you?
Yeah, at the first, the book was shown Malaysia as a full of different culture living together.
Yeah.
And then the Japanese invade and create new buildings. Yeah.
For real.
It's doing a bunch of like stupid shit, I get. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's what they
mean,
were doing.
yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, just take your house, take your man, kid to work, rape your wife, and you can't do anything about it, bro. You try to fight back, bro. What you get? The bullet on your head. You dead. That's bro. Like, so you can't really do anything about it. Yeah.
Real.
And I think that's a really good point. It gets to one of the core parts of this entire book. Colonization, like, really creates a lot of instability in once was like a relatively harmonious environment, and that kind of sort of like seeps into all sorts of other avenues, such as like generational trauma and really like throws everything for a loop.
Yeah, no, like what you were saying about generational trauma, I feel like that's a reoccurring theme throughout the whole book. Like, I feel like that's maybe like the main message. I mean, like, one of the main problems was when the Japanese invaded Malaysia, or occupied Malaysia, they actually raped and killed Mohini, who is Lakshmi's oldest daughter, and that just reinforced even more generational trauma, which is just a reoccurring thing, especially as the book follows through like several generations. And I know that traumatized Aya, Mohini's father, and also Lakshmanan, Mohini's twin brother, developed a gambling addiction, and that actually directly affected his family, as he lost pretty much all of his money, and then his wife and 3 kids were now in poverty. So that's just showing that repeating cycle. I think that also relates to Dimple collecting that dream trail.
And Dimple is one of the kids, or?
Yeah, Dimple, that is Mohini's sister. I hope I'm not confusing the family tree, but we'll get back into that later. Did anyone else notice any other important themes?
I mean, yeah, I think that's a really good theme, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that for sure it feels like certain people are more disproportionately affected by that cycle of like trauma you're talking about, namely like looking at like traditional gender roles, and like women and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if anyone had any thoughts about that, because that was a pretty huge theme of the book. We have these like really resilient women who are given no room for flexibility in maneuvering the social system.
Yeah, no, literally.
I mean,
Yeah,
kind of. Sorry,
go ahead.
Kind of like to build off what both of you guys said. It's more kind of like a domino effect, and in this book, it seems to follow each character and follows the domino effect. So us as readers, we're able to see it and follow the story.
True. Yeah, it's not like first person for us. We're seeing like an outside perspective, how it's like repeating itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah, I feel like right from the get-go, the women were you could tell that they were all objectified. For example, in the beginning, Lakshmi was essentially offered to her potential suitors, where she was ultimately forced to marry. And people like Mohini, who's Lakshmi's prettiest daughter, have to literally change how they act and where they go in response to this misogyny. And because she's so beautiful, she kind of had to like hide herself from men throughout the story. There was also the example of the neighbors. So the male neighbor basically uses the woman house helper as like a child carrier, since he's constantly getting her pregnant, and that just sounds absolutely terrible. But but despite all this, the women's characters are strong and resilient in the face of all of this adversity.
No, yeah, so true. If I you just refresh my memory about one thing that I noticed in the book. I did notice so you were saying who was it? Yeah, Mohini's objectified because she's so pretty, and that also kind of reminded me of how there were actually a lot of stereotypes being followed, stereotypes about Southern Asians and pale skin, or stereotypes beauty standards. I noticed that coming up a lot. Mohini's constantly praised because she has light skin and emerald green eyes, and then I forgot who it was, but one of her grandchildren or children becomes the favorite because she resembles Mohini. So I don't know how that plays into it, but I did notice those gender or beauty standards. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Because in modern Asia now, a lot of people, especially in Korea, they will get their skin bleached because they want to be more white.
Yeah.
Or even in China, it's just they will sell products that will bleach your skin to make you turn more white.
Yeah. So I grew up in Indonesia, and that's one thing I find funny. Whenever I go to the States, people are always going to the beach to try to get tan. But then when I go back to Indonesia, people are trying to put beauty care products that make them really pale.
Kind of trying to obey whiteface and trying to follow their beauty standards from where they're from. And I know it's so different and so exaggerated, but that's what they've always wanted to look like since they were little. That's the people that have been kind of looked up to since they were little, and that's why they've always wanted to look like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it shows just how objective beauty is in general, because it's so different all across the world, and someone who might be gorgeous in the States goes somewhere else and they're oh, I'm a little humbled.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's got to play into the gender roles thing too. I'm sure women are held to those beauty standards much higher than men. I don't know.
Absolutely, and I think that's definitely reflected in the book, that it's it's all the women that are having to deal with everything. Like,
Held to a higher standard, but they have more responsibility.
More responsibility.
at the same
Lakshmi
time.
immediately goes to Aya's house. She has to clean the whole house up, but then she also has to like focus on like their financial planning and child rearing, all this stuff. But
Yeah.
So yeah, we've definitely covered a lot of great stuff today. You know, colonization, generational trauma, things like that. But like to kind of like close us out, do we just have any thoughts on general on the book or like how we feel about it? Just really anything. Yeah, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought that the book it just gets dark real quick. You know, it starts off kind of happy, like, oh, this little girl's about to get married, and she's about to, you know, live in like a big mansion, but it just really quickly gets messed up, especially when the Japanese invade and all that.
For real.
It's a really dark book. Like even just for me personally, the very first scene where she is forced to sleep. She's like, what, 14 years old or something? She's forced to sleep with his 37-year-old husband.
Jesus
I thought that was as bad as it gets. And then you end up somehow empathizing with this guy and realizing he's just part of this greater system. Not that what happened was cool, and it just gets darker and darker constantly. It's really intense.
And then whenever you overall look over the book, one can say that it doesn't really connect to our world, but if you deep dive and you really go into the themes and you really go into the traumas that are being shown, you can see how much it's really playing into play to our modern day.
That's true. It has like very similar themes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the themes overall are just really important, and like I definitely personally would recommend this to other Southeast Asian like
Scholars.
courses or like people interested in the topic.
Yeah, agreed. Not to like backtrack, but when you were talking about how like the expectations of for Lakshmi, like how she basically made Aya's house like a home, like that was all on her. Like one of the things that really was like crazy to me was like as soon as Mohini died, like that hurt everyone, that affected everyone. Aya like kind of retreated, and Lakshmi, the actual mother who had been doing so much, had to like continue to step up throughout that. Like she had to stay strong. Like she had no choice. Like she's like the roots of everyone.
Yeah, a lot of really admirable characters. It's just unfortunate that they have no choice but to be strong in that kind of way. But yeah, a lot to unpack here. I'm sure we can go on for a lot longer. This was a really deep book, really great, something I think we all strongly recommend.
Very much so.
But yeah, that sort of wraps up this podcast for today. This was the Rice Family Podcast.
Yes.
Again, we're sponsored by No More Colonialism because colonialism really sucks. Yeah, please subscribe.
Post notifications.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.